So in that first lecture we did about the 3 dictionaries, we're going to focus particularly on the second dictionary today. We're going to focus on the family dictionary and how that really did shape your views of gender, and it's going to have a key part in your paper, okay? Before we actually get to how you've been gendered by culture as interpreted by your family, we need to take a look at some really key concepts. So, first, the self as object. Self as object, our ability to self-reflect enables us to define ourselves and exercise some choice over who we will become. At first, others' views of us are external, but we gradually internalize them so that they influence how we see ourselves. Now remember, go back to what Mead said, right? Mead said when you were born without a self and a mind. So Mead is kind of saying when you're born, you're like this really impressionable piece of clay. And people are going to put their imprint on this clay, and it's going to be up to you how much you internalize the input that you are in fact getting. Okay? So, the self as object. What do we mean by that? Well, here's a coffee cup, okay? That's an object. We can look at that object. We can stand outside of that object, and we can take a look at it and draw opinions based on this object. Okay? We can do that with the chair, the desk, we can do it with anything. What psychologists are arguing is that you're an object, and you step back and often look at yourself as an object and make judgments based on people's opinions. So I want to share with you 2 really interesting quotations. First is from Mead. We experience self only after we experience others. We experience self only after we experience others. Bakhtin, a Russian linguist, said it this way. I love this quote. Without a we, there is no me. Without a we, there is no me. Now, what do you think Bakhtin means by that? What do you think Mead means by that? We experience self only after we experience others. What do you think? Yeah.
Because we compare ourselves to others all the time.
Yes, and what particular others do you think you mostly compare yourself to?
Like friends.
Yeah, today it's definitely peers that you compare yourself to, but go way back. Who were the individuals that you compare yourself to when you were growing up at a very young age?
Your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, brothers and sisters. And what your parents were saying about what your brothers and sisters did. We experience ourselves only after we experience others, and without a we, there is no me. Now again, remember, you can hear the anti-essentialist coming out saying there is nothing inherent about you before you socialize with people. I think as Christians we probably would differ with that based on Psalm 139 a little bit, that God did create your inward parts. I think He did give you a personality. I think there's things that's true of all of us because we're made in the image of God. But you can really appreciate this. Okay, I had a linebacker brother who played college football. He was one tough guy, very small, was scouted by the University of Michigan. I mean, he had the record for tackles in my high school. It lasted forever. And afterwards, a scout from Michigan met with my brother Bob, and he said to him, "Son, you got great heart, but you're not going to play linebacker in college. You're way too small to do that." So my brother Bob, great athlete. My brother Ken, great athlete. And you notice what my dad praised. He would look at the athleticism, and that's how you got my dad's attention. I actually, growing up, I'm not sure where I got this from, but I also was an athlete, but very artistically minded. I remember going in my back bedroom and painting and drawing pictures, showing it to my dad, and my dad was like, It's like, Dad, it's a horse. And he goes, okay, well, how is that a horse? You know, it's like, he didn't know what to do with that. My mom greatly affirmed that. My mom was like, oh, that's awesome, and got me a paint set and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I wasn't just interested in sports. I loved to read. And I remember Ray Bradbury, discovering Ray Bradbury, and try to explain Ray Bradbury to your dad, your factory worker dad. You see, Dad, the spaceship would go to Mars, and in Mars it always rains. And my dad's like, how do you know it? I mean, he was just like, come on, okay? So I begin to identify myself, comparing myself to my brothers, and getting two different responses from my mom and my dad, okay? My mom loving the artistic side, and my dad not knowing what to do with it. Okay, makes sense? You are an object. Now, by the way, studies show that early on, absolutely, your parents have a huge impact in you early on. That is mitigated by friends do take the place of parents the older you get. Peers become the dominant voice in your life. So it really is true. Watch out, the people you hang out with, they're going to have a huge impact on your self-identity. Okay? Because the fun thing about honestly going hiking with John and Chris is, yeah, we talked about a bunch of March Madness and all this kind of stuff. But we also talked about our relationship with God. We talked about our wives. We talked about parenting. How do you parent teenagers? We just looked at each other and said, I don't know. That took, what, 10 seconds? Let's talk about those who have never heard. I don't know, kind of a thing. But so I love the fact that I hang out with men. I mean, John Lundy made a living doing fishing in Alaska and almost died like 5 times. I mean, heroic stuff. But at the same time, he's a very sensitive husband, father, excellent theologian. So you're being defined now by peers, but you never stop seeing yourself as an object. Okay? Second, monitoring. Monitoring is an internal process people use to regulate how they fit with external norms. Mead spoke of internal dialogues, which happen inside us, but involves the perspectives of others. Now listen, let me just tell you right now, psychologists will say, and I mentioned this in another class, these internal dialogues are not a part of who you are. They really are who you are. These internal dialogues are amazingly powerful, and they absolutely shape who you think you are. And again, I marvel at Kobe Bryant. I marvel at a Brett Favre who at the end of the game knows they're going to win the game, okay? Because my self-talk, my internal dialogue is, well, I'm going to pull this one out again. Okay, give me the ball, last shot, I'm going to win. Other people have internal dialogues that are not nearly as confident. Some of you used to have very confident internal dialogues in high school or pre-high school, and now your internal dialogue is such that you're not nearly as confident in how you look, how you think, and how you do as compared to other people. So honestly, that loop that is being played within your head is a very important loop, and you need to become aware of it. Now, you'll really become aware of it when you have kids. Kids really teach you what your internal loop is and how you want to create maybe a different internal loop in your kids. That's very interesting to think about. So, I am horrible at finances. Okay, I'm saying this on YouTube. I am horrible at finances, terrible. Noreen had calculus classes. I had mime classes, okay? I am terrible at math. And that used to really bother me. It used to really bother me. Because in Noreen's family, he does the books. Mr. Lenihan is one of the best salesmen IBM had, and just incredibly smart when it comes to business and accounting and all that kind of stuff. And he can fix anything. Anything. Anything's broke, Mr. Lanahan will just go out and fix it. Okay? Me, I have no idea how to fix things, and I have no math. I'm just so bad at math. My kids make fun of me. Jason will mention things he's doing in honors math right now, and I don't even know. He's lying to me because that makes no. Imaginary numbers. I go like, what? One's a bunny? I mean, what? Okay. That used to bother me. It really did. And the guy I'm going to go hang out with this whole week, Tim Downs, built a deck that NASA looked at. Because this deck is so unbelievably huge outside the back of his house. It's a work of art. It has a gazebo, working lights, and I helped him build this. Basically, I mixed cement. That's all I did. And he said, stay away from the power tools. Okay, because Tim Downs is not only is he smart, a great writer, a great husband, a great dad, but he can build anything in his work. Okay, that used to bother me. Now, why doesn't it bother me now? Because I have met people like Eric Tanis, who knows nothing. And it's beautiful. Aaron Kleist. I say, who does the finances in your house? He goes, my wife. Oh, we'd be broke if I did them. We'd be broke. See, I so admire Aaron, Eric, Paul Spears is terrible at home anything. I love it. So hearing that, my internal dialogue, right, because now peers has kind of replaced parents, and my dad, he wasn't a Mr. Fix-It either. The shower broke in junior high. It wasn't fixed until I went to college. I took baths. To this day, I take showers just for the fun of it. Seriously, in college, people would say to me, to my roommate, Dave Mexicon, where's Muehlhoff? Just taking a shower. What? Yeah. Didn't you say he was taking a shower like in the... I would take 3-4 showers. When I'm writing, I love to stand in the shower and just stand there and just... Because think about that, guys, coming home from 2-a-day practices in football, and I'd have to take a bath with the water turning gross and just terrible. Okay, so my dad wasn't a... Oh, holy cow. My dad wasn't... Oh, stop. My dad wasn't a Mr. Fix-It, so it didn't bother me that I wasn't a Mr. Fix-It until I met Noreen's dad. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about Erving Goffman. Goffman had a fascinating idea, and the idea was that you do a presentation of your self-identity to other people. Goffman wrote a fascinating book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. He very much compared it to a stage in which you played a role that you were creating. So think about it. You think this is what it means to be masculine, you think this is what it means to be feminine, and then you actually went out and performed your identity. You performed it. I had this idea of what a professor should look like, how a professor should act, how a professor should dress and talk and all this kind of stuff. And I performed that identity. Goffman says, though, 2 things happen. One, there's a front stage and a backstage. The front stage is when you know people are watching you and watching your performance. They know it. So right now, I'm definitely performing being a professor. Now, in Goffman's terminology, performance is not insincere, it's not misleading. You cannot not perform. Okay? So these performances we tend to really think about. I just had my tenure interview at Biola. Okay? It was with the president and the provost, the 2 most important people at Biola. Okay? If they want to put a squash on my tenure, they could have squashed it in that hour meeting. So how do you think I dressed for that meeting? Suit and tie. Okay, polished my shoes the night before. Okay, I walk in there. How do you think? As soon as I walked in there, what do you think I did? Here are both men standing there. What did I do? Absolutely. Okay, sat down. They asked me if I wanted something to drink. I said sure. So I got a glass of water just sitting there. How much did I joke around with them initially? Why are you shaking? Why not try to break the tension with a joke? Now, can you imagine the monitoring that's happening when I'm sitting there in that meeting and that internal dialogue's going? I mean, how many times do you think I ask myself, hey, I wonder how this meeting's going? Okay, I wonder if I should do anything. They ask me about my teaching passions. They ask me, why do you want to be at Biola long term? They ask me, what are you most passionate about? Now, when they ask the question, what are you most passionate about, what are the thoughts that actually go through your mind? Should I tell them what I'm really most passionate about, or should I tell them what I think is the right answer? Yeah, I mean, eventually it's going to be Jesus. You know, however you say that, it's going to get back to Jesus, right? So those are interesting moments. And Goffman would say, absolutely, you're performing. Now, what Goffman would be really interested in, where did you get this idea of professional? Because for sure I wanted to look professional and act professional. So walking in, he would simply want to say, where did you get that idea from? Where? Are you thinking of a movie right now? Are you thinking about your parents? Well, I'm not. Okay, I might be thinking of Noreen's parents, because he's a professional salesman who went coat and tie to work every day. My dad went in the same clothes, I mean the factory clothes that he would go to. So when I walk in that room, Goffman would want to know, where are you getting this idea of being a professional? Now you see the importance of parenting, right? Because now my kids are this impressionable wax. And I want to say to them, okay guys, this is what it means to be a man. A young man, okay? Jeremy's going to turn 13. Michael's going to turn 18. 18! Unbelievable. Unbelievable, okay? Jason's going to turn 16. These are such big birthdays. So you're sitting there with them and you're thinking, okay, I want to shape them to what it means to be a man. But then Goffman would say, by the way, where did you get that idea of a man? Where'd that come from? That's what your paper is going to be about. Guys, I want you to work it. I want you to work how is this definition working for me right now? And where did I get the idea of what a man would be? Does that make sense? Incredibly important self-dialogue. Okay? So, right now I'm performing being a professor. Okay, by the way, even when I consciously say I'm going to be unprofessor-like, I'm still performing an edited version of what you know what I mean? Edited. Buchner says we always present highly edited versions of our life to other people. Okay? So even if I'm going to go off script and be kind of fun and approachable, and in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking within boundaries. Okay? Within boundaries. Make sense? But Goffman would say there is a backstage. There is a backstage where you might do things that are counter to the performance. Now, where do you think my backstage is here on campus? Where's my backstage? Okay, a door opened or closed? Closed. Yeah, if it's opened, what is it? I mean, anybody can walk by, right? Doesn't matter how busy you are. Anybody walks by. Hey, Dr. Muehlhoff. Oh, hey, how are you? Yeah, good. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I have no time to talk to you right now. No, I'm really busy, but Biola, love you guys, okay? I mean, isn't it? Door closed, okay? Paper, thin walls. Matt Williams shows up, walks in, closes the door. And I'll never tell you what happens when Matt Williams closes the door, okay? It's like, does that make sense? But even with Matt, what am I saying with Matt? We're still two Biola faculty members who are getting to know each other, but am I still performing for Matt, being a Biola faculty member? You know what I mean? Interesting thing Goffman said, they're all performances. Goffman would argue, even when you're by yourself, you could be performing. Interesting to think about. So in my family class, it's really interesting to think about, okay, so you're going to marry this person, right? You're going to spend the rest of your life with this person. $1 million question, how do you know you're really seeing his or her backstage? How would you ever know you're seeing his or her backstage? Thoughts? How do you know? How do you know you've gotten access to the backstage? But what would be your thought? I think I'm seeing the backstage. I think I'm seeing a non-performance right now. Yeah.
I think sometimes they can be shown.
Now that's really good. Angie, that's really good because you just described what this is. Performances you give are the ones you consciously think out. Okay? The ones you give off, you do not consciously think about, and they might even contradict your performance. So let me tell you a really interesting thing that happened. I'm speaking at this conference, a Christian conference, and with 3 other super well-known Bible teachers. And I'm like the guy nobody knows, but they just bring in Crusade, one of their own, and stuck them on the list, okay? We get a break, and they say, hey, let's go play basketball. It's just like, okay, awesome, let's go play basketball. Now, I'm going to play basketball with people I've been teaching the Bible to, okay? Now, what do you think I'm thinking as I'm playing basketball with the very people I've been teaching the Bible? What kind of internal dialogue do you think I'm having right now?
Probably don't foul him, don't go hard.
Yeah, don't be an idiot.
Don't need to win.
Yeah, don't need to win. Bigger things are at play.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting invited back. I've been teaching them about Christ-like, blah, 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 blah. So if somebody really follows me and doesn't call it, I'm probably just going to say, oh, yeah. Seriously. Okay? 2 of the speakers in front of God, country, and everybody almost get into a fight. Had to be pulled apart. Had to be pulled apart. Because one guy got fouled and didn't say anything, and they got fouled again. Said, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not taking it anymore. Nose to nose. And I'm standing there like. So afterwards, very interesting. Afterwards, a bunch of people grabbed me. They were really disturbed by it, really disturbed. And said later to me, now do you think that ought to affect us in how we listen to them teach the word? By the way, before I give you my answer, what would be your answer? Who said yes? Okay, talk to me.
Because I feel like I live.
Okay. But, David, you play lacrosse, which somebody once told me was football with weapons. Okay? Have you ever lost it during a game? Just kind of lost it a little and
Yeah.
said, I don't care what the school, I don't care the name on my jersey right now. I don't care. Because there's a thing called the Old Testament. Okay, you know what I mean? So how many of you that would kind of hurt their credibility? How many of you would kind of hurt their credibility a little bit? Nick, elaborate just a little bit. Well, think about how this is so linked to your internal dialogue. Now, why can I horse around playing basketball? And I've played with Eric. I've played basketball with Eric. Because in my internal dialogue is, I have very little invested in basketball. I hit the backboard, I get excited. And think you ought to get a half point. Because that hit it pretty hard. Okay? I'm basically a living, moving speed bump. I set picks. That's what I do. Except when I play with athletes in action, I did consulting, we went out and played. And I'd go set a pick and they'd yell at me. No, go away, go away, go away. I'm like, I was helping, okay? Okay, who knew? All right, I have so little invested. But I was doing consulting with athletes in action, and they were doing a racquetball tournament. And this is, I'm so bummed about California, there's no racquetball courts here. There's no racquetball except at like LA Fitness, and we don't belong to LA Fitness. So I haven't played racquetball. I played tennis, no racquetball. I played racquetball probably 3 times a week in North Carolina. Had a great group of people. We played a ton. So Athletes in Action has this tournament while I was there, and they said, hey, come join. They all knew I played racquetball. They said, come on, play. I said, okay, sure, I'll play. And they're all kind of, you can imagine, right? Here's the teacher going to play racquetball, and they're all athletes. Even though, not many of them were top-level racquetball players, but, they're athletes. They're all college football and basketball, blah, blah. So, don't you know it, I get to the finals. And I'm playing this kid who's a really good athlete, but you can tell he's a tennis player. You can tell he's a tennis more than racquetball because he's got kind of looping. He can hit really hard, but racquetball is all about short swings, low on the wall. Okay? And tennis can really hurt you. When I would play really good racquetball players, first thing they would say to me is, "You play tennis, don't you?" And I was like, "Yep." When I played really good tennis players, first thing they said to me is, "You play racquetball, don't you?" And I was like, "Yep." And they both would say, "You really can't do both." But I'd do both because I loved it. So here I am playing this kid, and now it's the finals with a glass backing and people watching. Okay? So my self-talk. It's like, hey, it's fine for me to joke about basketball because I'm not really a basketball player. And it's fine for me, whatever. But racquetball, I'm a racquetball player. Now, do you hear the internal dialogue? So this kid, we're playing, and it starts off, we're both just kind of laughing until I take the first game. Now, it's best out of 3, and he's not laughing as much. And calling hinders. Those of you who know racquetball, a hinder is, I wanted to hit my forehand. You purposely stood in the way to take my forehand. I'd have to hit you if I hit my forehand. So you call a hinder, which is you took away the shot I wanted by standing there, and you really can't do that. Okay? So he takes the second game, and now we're in the third game, and he is purposely moving over, cutting down my forehand. Now I have this much to hit my forehand when I should really have that much. So I walked up to him. I said, "Hey, you're like hindering every play." He goes, "Well, then call it." I'm like, "Oh, or I can just hit you." Which, by the way, playing really good racquetball players, really good. I once played the Arkansas Open champion, Mike Miller, who, by the way, no way, I probably got 4 points each game because he let me have them. I've never seen a ball hit that hard, and I was cheating. And he walked up and said, "Hey, let me tell you, when you're playing open racquetball, like in the state of Arkansas, I don't tell you that's a hinder. I hit you once, and you'll never stand there again." How many of you have been hit by a racquetball and get a big welt? Yes. Imagine getting hit by a howitzer. So this kid, hear my language? I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, seriously, this is like the 5th time I've had to call a hinder, and that means I can't get the point. That was my point. But I can't get it, call a hinder, you get to replay the point." And he goes, "Well then," sure enough, man, he got in front, internal dialogue. I did not even care. I was like, boom, right? And his, okay. And I'm just like, I turn around, my friends with athletes in action, I go, "Oh my God." Ed Uzinski, who's really good friends with me and Eric Tanis, he was like, "Oh man." And I won. So it really was okay. So, things you give and things you give off. Goffman would say things you get off when you're really angry. Things you give off when you're really tired. Things you give off when you're under a ton of stress. Might be an indicator, not to totally contradict the performance, but might give you alternate performances, right? So before you get married, of course you want to see that person in every possible situation you possibly can. I mean, one guy, Max Lucado, said you can tell much about a man in how he handles rainy Sundays, late flights, and tangled Christmas lights. Okay, so interesting, okay? All right, does that make sense? Those are the kind of things we need to keep in place. And in your paper, you're going to talk about what is the presentation of masculinity that you're crafting. When you walk out of your dorm room and you're thinking, "I'm going to be a man," what's the presentation that you're working through? Or ladies, you're thinking, I want to date a guy or marry a guy who's appropriately masculine, in my opinion. What does that performance look like to you consistently? Yeah, Nick.
What was the opinion you gave for the 2 guys that almost gave up the fight?
I said if it was habitual, if it happened once, I get it, right? We all do that. We're all in tough situations. We're tired. But if every time these guys play basketball, or fairly regularly, they step on that basketball court and just act like jerks, they act childish, then I think that is fair game to look at them and assess. All of us have bad days, and I've had it driving I'm just terrible driver. I'm grouchy. I'm grouchy. And everybody's an idiot. Everybody. It's like, are you kidding? Noreen's car had an eclipse. I hated that. I wanted to rip it off. But how loserish would that be, to have a ripped off symbol of the fish? It's like you'd be I don't know what it meant. Okay, so now that we have these in place, let's talk about very specifically, we're going to tackle masculinity, and then I'm going to give a Christian critique. Then we're going to tackle femininity, and I'll offer a Christian critique. Because here's what happens. Remember, what's the first dictionary you get? What's the first dictionary you consult? Culture. But at a young age, culture is always filtered through the parent. At a very early age, mom and dad are deciding what you get to watch. Mom and dad, something will happen on television and we'll literally say, okay, now we know not to do that, right? When my kids are young, Sports Center, I literally would pause it and they'd all roll their eyes and I'd say, okay, is that really how a man acts? Is that what we should do? Did that really help the team when he got that technical? All that kind of stuff. So early on, for sure, cultural messages are mitigated or filtered through the perspective of the parents. Now, if you had a single parent, add that to the mix. You were getting a very specific filter having a single mom or a single dad raise you. Okay? By the way, if your parents split up, interesting that culture was being mitigated through the fact that you had parents who decided to split up. All of that is fair game. Okay? So, we're going to talk about James Doyle wrote a fascinating book in 1997 called The Male Experience. As Doyle took a look at culture and the cultural messages, he came up with, I think, 5 dominant messages that we could see in culture today. Now, how much have those dominant messages impacted your internal voice? Well, the answer would be, how much were they counteracted by your parents? And second, how much did those external views become internal? In other words, how much are you buying into this? And what did your parents do directly or indirectly to offset these very powerful cultural messages? Does that make sense? Okay, so Doyle. The first one, he labels it the prime directive men get. And the prime directive is, don't be female. The fundamental requirement for manhood is not to be womanly. Now, my goodness, how do you define that word? And how do you define this word? Well, guess what? Early on, directly or indirectly, your parents were defining those words for you. So, guys, talk to me. When I said don't be female as the prime directive, having not talked to any of you guys beforehand, what is your initial interpretation of what it would be like to be female or womanly? If the prime directive is don't be that, then what is that? Yeah?
I think in a broad sense, I'd say
Overly emotional. Okay? What else? Guys, don't be female. Well, what strikes you as interpreting female? What do you think?
to kind of piggyback on overly emotional, just emotional in general.
Okay, it could be just emotional in general.
Yeah.
Never saw my dad cry. Ever. My dad never apologized for anything. Okay, that's, just, yeah.
Be decisive.
Okay, be decisive. Okay? What do you think my football coaches meant when we would squabble or there's a disagreement on the football field, practice field? He goes, ladies, come on. What do you think he meant by that?
Quit complaining and deal with it.
Quit complaining and deal with it. Wow. That's pretty powerful. Okay? Prime directive. Don't be female. Now, you can understand how that is augmented if you had a family where your dad was both strong and sensitive. How many of you men growing up, you did hear your dad say, "I'm sorry," and he even apologized to you? Show of hands. How many of you, if your dad did that, it'd be an out-of-body experience? Anybody? Yeah, it just wasn't in the realm. How many of you, your dad looked you right in the eyes and told you he loved you? Show of hands. How many of you, your dad never did that? Anybody? Yeah.
He'd only say he's proud of me.
Only proud of you. Okay.
Like he'd be like crying, saying, "I'm proud of you."
Okay. Okay. So when you grow up and you have kids, boys, will you counteract that or kind of follow in his footsteps?
Counteract it.
Okay.
I feel like I learned a lot more from what my dad did wrong.
Boy, that's me. Yeah. I kind of did opposite, to be honest with you. And then I met men like Tim Downs. Tim's a great racquetball player, was an Olympic skeet shooter, is an inventor, has written how many Christian books? I don't know, 13? I mean, just prolific, and is a man's man. I mean, he builds things and just remarkable guy. So when I met him, he kind of reparented me in a way. I saw somebody and said, okay, for sure that's a man, but so counter to what I had seen that you start to do monitoring. You start to say, okay, maybe the internal dialogue is going to get edited a little bit and changed. Okay? So that's the first one. Second one, be successful. Alfie Kohn said this: the general rule is that American males are simply trained to win. The object, a boy soon gathers, is not to be liked, but to be envied. Not to be part of a group, but to distinguish himself from others in that group. Julia will later say, if women are a sex object, men are a success object. You feel good about yourself because of this. Okay? You can point to something. It might be your grade point. It might be your salary. It might be all the boy toys that guys have, you know, these kind of cars and boats and extravagant vacations and stuff like that. Jeremy once said to me, Dad, it's Jeremy, my sensitive one, my reflective one. Dad, does it ever bother you that you drive a minivan? Really interesting. I said, should it? And he goes, well, no, probably not. But interesting that he asked it. Okay? Michael, oh, I gotta watch this. I said to him, you can either walk to school or drive the minivan. Junior in high school, guess what he picked? Walked. Isn't that wild? So the general rule is that men are simply trained to win. Stupid things pro athletes say. Hey, if it's not first place, it might as well be last place. Really? Like second place isn't, bronze isn't good, silver isn't good, right? It's just first place or nothing. A hockey player once said, if we don't win the Stanley Cup, the whole season was a waste. Really? Because you didn't get to the Super Bowl, the whole season's a waste? Okay? So, now again, how much of that is mitigated by your parents? What do we say to our kids? Do your best. You look me in the eye and you tell me you did your best. By the way, that's negotiated. Sometimes you think you did your best, and we look and say that wasn't your best. Okay, an hour before the test wasn't your best. Okay, kind of a thing. Some of you are smiling right now because you've had these talks with your parents, okay? Be aggressive. Be aggressive. Every parent, every dad wants a son to be that son who lays down a hard foul. You know what I mean? The aggressive one. Rick Riley, who writes for Sports Illustrated, was talking about Bear Bryant, one of the iconic men's football coaches who was just flat out abusive to his players. I mean, he would do these things out in the desert that were just subhuman to his football players, and most of them quit. They couldn't do it. But Rick Riley says, for displaying such inhumanity to man, Bryant was not indicted, he was deified. And to be honest with you, watch March Madness. And talk about madness, watch these head coaches. Some of them are absolutely insane. And we allow it. Why? Because they're successful. Why in the world was Bobby Knight allowed to do what he did for so long? He was successful. Bobby Knight is the head coach of Indiana basketball and is just kind of crazy.
Did he hit some of the kids and that's why he's got in trouble?
Yeah, he choked a child, threw a chair. He's very famous for throwing a chair across the gym. But Indiana put up with it because in basketball, Indiana is the mecca, and he had a great program. Of course, when his program started to decline is when the president made a move and got rid of Bobby Knight. So this idea of be aggressive. Now, there's nothing wrong, I think, with being assertive, but the question is be aggressive. Know what you want and take it. Take life by, and don't worry about other people. Just be assertive and aggressive. And hard to know what to do with that. Of course I want my kids to be aggressive, but appropriately aggressive. How many of you know Dan Gable? Does that name mean anybody, anything? Any wrestlers, any former wrestlers? Dan Gable is arguably the best American wrestler in the history of wrestling. He went through the Pan Am Games and not only never lost, was never scored upon, which is unheard of in wrestling. Unheard of. He did it. He only lost once in college, and it was one of his last matches, and to this day, he lives out in a cabin in Utah, because you could imagine nobody would want to live with a guy like this crazy. And, oh, I'm sorry. That's probably one I shouldn't have gone through first. But you know what I mean? Just craziness. His mom, now talk about this. He went up to his mom when he was in high school, and again, he was undefeated, and he said, Mom, I'm a little bit nervous about this match. And she says, what do you want me to do? Take your wrestling shoes and trade them in for ballerina slippers? I mean, think about that. That kind of a message from your mom. Okay? When he became a coach of Iowa, he would just abuse his players, abuse them. He would do these suicide drills and do it until guys emotionally or physically broke down. And he would say to them, hey, last one, guys, last one. And they would do it, and he'd go, okay, one more. Finally, a student said, you're a liar, you are a liar. And he was eating an apple, took it, and bounced it right off the kid's head. Boom. Oh my gosh. Now, isn't there a part of you that loves that? Isn't there? Okay, kind of a thing. All right, so it is abuse. It is abuse. Be sexual. Doogie Howser. A man is many things, but he's not a virgin. A man is many things, but he's not a virgin. I picked up this magazine, and it said 26 things to do by age 26. And number 18 was lose your virginity. If you think about a movie I've never seen, but a movie that I hear actually has a very powerful message, though I'd never watch it, is The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Because the joke is in the title. Can you imagine anything worse in life than to be 40 and still a virgin? I mean, you can kind of understand the psychology behind it. But if you actually, my friends who have seen the movie and the reviews I've read of the movie is at the end, his virginity is the one thing everybody wants to protect in the entire movie. Everybody, even his sex-driven friends, want to keep him from losing his virginity until he gets married because they said it's such a rare and precious thing, I don't want you to squander it. Very interesting subtext to that movie, but I've not seen it because it's so sexually explicit. Okay, be sexual. Be self-reliant. You don't need other people. We have this phrase, the self-made man. Interesting, isn't it? I made it by myself. What is the name of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, not Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone movie where he's a mountain climber? Cliffhanger, right? Cliffhanger opens with him hanging by a cliff with a bicep that's bigger than my chest, okay? And he's just hanging there, and he pulls himself up by one arm, which is like a metaphor for the movie. Because in the movie, his best friend's girlfriend, they're mountain climbing together, and he's a professional par excellence mountain climber. And she falls and is in a very precarious position, and he, of course, being the hero, the manly man, says, I'll go get her, and he unhooks himself and slides down, grabs her, but as he's pulling her up, she can't hang on and falls to her death. Now, he blames himself, right? He has a drop-dead, gorgeous girlfriend. Does he go to her for help? No. He has a bunch of friends. Does he go to them for help? No. He literally goes off to a cave and works it out and comes out whole. Okay? So, interesting. Right? I can do this by myself. Okay? Makes sense? Now, so what's the result of all this? The result is a hidden male depression. Real men who admit they are depressed suffer the double stigma of having emotional problems and being unmanly by society's standards. Because what if you can't make it by yourself? What if you can't be a self-made man? What if you actually need help? Is that a weak thing? What if you are 30 and a virgin? What if you're not super successful, all depending on what that means? The result of this is a hidden male depression because you don't ever talk about it. Now, here's what I admire about your generation. My generation, if I needed to go see a counselor, I might have gone to see a counselor but would not tell anybody about it. I'm impressed by Biola students here that when I'm talking in my office hours with somebody with the door closed, and they'll say, hey, I am going to see somebody about this. And I've been impressed by a lot of men willing to say that. That is absolutely not a sign of weakness, but my generation and my dad's generation, you got to be kidding me, never would have gone to help for anybody. I think my generation would have, but we would not have been public about it. So I do think it's a healthy sign to kind of say, you know, I'm getting help. The greatest lie about marriage is the only time you go see a marriage counselor is when your marriage is broke. Which kind of like, the only time I go see an auto mechanic is when my car doesn't run. I think we're getting past that, hopefully. And Julia would say that for men today, now again, this is Doyle, that's his response. Julia weighs in your textbook and says, I think the result of all this is a little bit of gender confusion today. And I kind of like this picture. One, because they didn't show my whole face. But you know what I mean? I think crying today is an interesting one. Can men cry? And the answer is, you better believe they can cry. Think about Brett Favre. Remember Brett Favre? Think about this gender confusion. Brett Favre's dad dies. He's incredibly close to his dad. His dad dies on a Sunday, but they're playing Monday Night Football. And I think everybody in the world would have looked at Brett Favre and said, hey, we get it. You don't need to be playing football. Your dad just died. And what did Brett Favre do? He played in that Monday night game and had one of the best games in the history of his career. So the guys marveled the entire Monday night game, saying, I can't believe this, he just died. The grief he must be feeling, the powerful emotions. Well, he played unbelievably well, but at the end of the game, when his wife came down, if you remember the scene, he lost it on national television hugging his wife. right? You can see all the, well, that's gender confusion. It's like, okay, so is it okay to cry? And when is it not okay to cry? Because, the coach of the Miami Heat said, hey, we just had a tough loss, and I'll tell you, there are a couple guys in the locker room are crying right now. And got slammed by everybody saying, come on, don't be talking about what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. You don't need it. And some people are like, well, why can't men cry? When is it okay to cry? When is it not okay to cry? Okay? So Julia would say that there's kind of gender confusion here. Let me give you the Christian critique real quick, and then we'll take a break and do the women next. But a Christian critique, I just want to focus on two things. Success. How much should Christian men be interested in success? Is it that men can't be ambitious? It's that men can't want to be successful? Well, C.S. Lewis says this about ambition. It's one of my favorite Lewis quotes when it talks about ambition. Ambition. We must be careful what we mean by it. If it means the desire to get ahead of other people, which is what I think it does mean, then it's bad. If it means simply wanting to do a thing well, then it is good. It isn't wrong for an actor to want to act his part as well as it can possibly be acted, but the wish to have his name in bigger type than the other actors is a bad one. Wow. Okay, as you write that down, give me feedback on what Lewis is saying. What's he saying? As you read that, interpret it for me. Yeah.
He's not saying to go for the promotion, but he's saying to do your job the best you can.
Okay, good. Anybody want to add to that or disagree with that? Is it okay for a man to want to go for a promotion? Was it wrong for me to want to get tenure and be promoted? Is that wrong for a man to want to be promoted? Was it wrong for Barry Corey to want to be president of Biola?
Everyone.
Oh.
How he would be better than.
I think that's good. I think that's good. But the wish to have his name bigger than everybody else's. Right? It's one thing for me to want to get tenure. I don't think there's anything wrong to want to get tenure. But if I get it, I then look at other people and say, I'm better than you because I have it. Does that make sense?
Right. It's the difference between, like, I want my name big.
Okay, and I love that. I love that. Can I play devil's advocate? Calvin once said, art needs no justification. Art needs no justification. By that, I think he meant, you want to be a good artist? You don't need to justify it. Well, my art is for the glory of God. Okay, fine. You don't need to justify it. All art, if it's done well, is glory to God. You don't need to justify it. So if I write a book, which I have, one, is it wrong? Which I have. It just occurred to me I have. Okay. Is it wrong for me to want to write the best book I can? Okay. Is it wrong for me to want to write a book that a lot of people will read? Is it wrong for me to want to write a book that even some people would read, think is important, and even me getting an award for writing it? Okay, that's good. Yes, and it's not always negative to want to seek man's favor. I want Todd Lewis to think that I've done a good job. I want the chair of my department to think that I've done a good job. I wanted Nystrom and Corey to think that I've done a good job and I'm worthy of tenure. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Well, going with the book metaphor, if you're basing your success off if you get an award.
Say it again, a little louder.
Base your success
Yeah.
on getting an award.
I want it, I have to have it to feel good about myself. And if I get it, I really am better than you. Right? Because I've got a writing award. You don't. By the way, I'm published, and you are not. That's when I think it really starts to get a little crazy. We're all serving God's kingdom, but what I do is more important than what you do. See what I mean? So this has always been a really convicting quote for me. And just Lewis puts it so well. a young Tim Muehlhoff in many ways. All right, one more critique and we're done. I want to critique something else that just kind of struck me. Be self-reliant. I think it's such an interesting one. If ever there could have been a person who was self-reliant, it was Christ. What does the book of Philippians say? Book of Philippians says that in him the fullness of deity dwelt. God is present in the person of Jesus. God incarnate. So I find it fascinating that at a pivotal moment in his life and ministry, which is the Garden of Gethsemane, if you read Mark chapter 14, this is so powerful. Jesus goes to Gethsemane, but look what he does. One, he takes with him Peter and James and John, saying, "This is a dark night of the soul, and I need you with me." Now, the million-dollar question is God just play acting at that point? He really doesn't need Peter, James, and John, but he might think that this is just a great example for the rest of us. I believe in the incarnation, Christ experienced human fear, human pain. So he takes with him Peter, James, and John. Then he says this, "My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death." He is transparent with other men. And again, I don't think Christ is play acting at this point. I think he's fearful of what's going to happen. He falls to the ground. Not only is he emotionally transparent, he collapses in front of his men. Physically collapses. Notice what he doesn't say. "O Lord God, King highest, I know all things work together," right? "O majestic, holy Jehovah." No, he uses the most childlike, intimate saying he could, which in essence he's saying, as a small child saying to a father, "Daddy, I need you. This is tough." Right? So he doesn't give us the King James Version. He gives us the, "I'm scared here." Now, why is he scared? He says, "Remove this cup from me." If you did a study on the word cup in the Old Testament, the cup always represents the wrath of God. Always. So, what's going to happen? Well, theologically, this gets a little interesting. I believe the cup represents God's cumulative wrath for the sins of all of humanity, past, present, future. I do not limit the atonement. I believe that Christ did not merely die for the elect, he died for everybody. And I believe that the wrath of God is placed upon him for the collective sins of every man, woman, and child who ever lived and will ever live. And he knew it was going to kill him. And for the first time in his life, he would be separated from fellowship with the Father. Remove this cup from me. Not the stoic, "Oh, I got this, boys. I got it. All I need is God, and we're good." Then he says, "Hey, I want you to pray for me." I find this remarkably counter to what the world says. Guys, you can handle this by yourself. Christ never did that. In one of his most frightening and courageous times, because he does bear up under the wrath of God. He does take it upon himself. I always say to my kids, which is true, God had a team of angels waiting, and all Christ had to do was to say, "This is too much, I'm not going to do this." And they would have come and he would have called off the crucifixion. He never did that. Why? I like what Michael Card had to say. It wasn't the nails that held him on the cross. It was his love for you that held him on the cross, which is so powerful. This is not Doyle. This is Julia Wood's observations of what it's like to grow up feminine in the United States. The first one is that a parent, no matter what, no matter how smart you are, no matter how accomplished you are, ladies, Appearance will always count. Gift catalogs for children regularly feature makeup kits, adornments for hair, and even wigs, so that girls learn early to spend time and effort looking good. Whoever defines good is hugely important. And we could do a case study, ladies. Why are you in this class? Some of you wear makeup, some of you don't wear makeup. Where did that come from? Where were the influences? Is that a purposeful statement, a countercultural statement? Or dolls come with accessories, extensive wardrobe, makeup. So, ladies, it doesn't matter if you're Secretary of State, it doesn't matter if you're a partner in a law firm, appearance will always be looked at and you will be judged by your appearance. For a lot of women, that means body image issues. In the student perspective part of your book, which these are Julia Wood's real-life students, saying what word do you most associate with being feminine, one woman said hungry. That's what being a woman means to me. I am hungry all the time. Okay? By the way, when I was at UNC Chapel Hill, Duke University did a study about women at Duke, which, you know, Duke is, as much as I hate them, despise them, and wish they never existed, is an amazing academic institution. Mostly it's for people who didn't have the grades to get into UNC Chapel Hill. But no, Duke is a great academic school, and they did a massive study of the gender climate at Duke, a bunch of qualitative studies as well as quantitative. And some of the women said, hey, listen, if you want to get ahead, it's better to be cute than smart. Was kind of the attitude they had at Duke, that they felt like if they weren't cute, they weren't going to be as effective if they were smart. So interesting. So no matter what, appearance still counts. Your body type, how you dress, everything like that. Number 2, according to Julia, women should be sensitive and caring. That's what you ought to be naturally gifted at. Number of studies reveal that women do the majority of caregiving for others. From assuming a responsibility for young children, guys in this classroom, how many of you babysat to pick up extra money?
My brother.
I mean, just, okay, but babysat for hire? Yeah, great. 1, okay. Yeah, we just naturally assume that a girl would be better than a guy. And now it's getting to the point where it's kind of weird, you know, so we're kind of looking for guys in some ways. And one guy was going to do it until during the orientation time where we were meeting him, he showed Jeremy how to do like this pain chokehold in front of us. And we were like, okay, you know, maybe we have your number. You know, we'll call. That's great, teaching Jeremy how to do a chokehold on the dog, on his brothers while they're sleeping. So a number of studies show that women, okay, from assuming responsibility of young children to caring of the elderly, sick relatives, women do the preponderance of hands-on caring. That's what women do. You're nurturers. You care for people, whether you're wired that way or not. It's assumed that that's what you're really good at. You take care of other people. Negative treatment. This is very interesting. Oh, stop. Okay, go back. How many of you had a relative come stay with you for health reasons? Anybody? A relative come stay with you for health reasons? Okay. Who did the majority of caring for that relative once they were in the house?
Well, my mother came to stay and I did the caring.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Does somebody else have a hand? Yeah, Barbara.
My mom because my dad worked.
Okay. Yeah.
We actually went to my grandma's house to take care of her, and it was
And who did the majority of the caring, your mom or dad?
my mom.
Okay. Yeah, traditionally, not to say that men can't do it, but it's not expected of men. It's expected of women. Okay? Can I turn it? Ladies, point number 3. You are the recipients of negative treatment. A study from 1983 asked the very interesting question of men and women. If you woke up the next morning and you were the opposite sex, what would you expect? Interesting question, isn't it? Girls, my dad would respect me more if I were a boy. My father would be closer because I'd be a son he always wanted. Men said, if they woke up female, I'd have to know how to handle drunk guys and rapists. I would have to carry a gun for protection. A fascinating study done on flight attendants. Do female flight attendants get treated more negatively than male flight attendants? And the study showed that overwhelmingly, ladies, you get treated more negatively. And they would say it's just part of the job. We just get treated negatively. By the way, I told you this before. When I taught a class at UNC Chapel Hill, I had 10 TAs. And very interesting to watch men, how they treated the female TAs. Very interesting. They would regularly come up to me and say, hey, I've got a couple guys in my class. I don't feel like they respect me. They kind of say things in class that I wish they wouldn't. It's hard to get them to be quiet. Julia Wood herself in classes, I'd be kind of surprised a little bit how men would talk to her. Now, Julia is more than capable of taking care of herself, but I was surprised that they'd kind of push her in ways that I did not perceive people treated me or tried to push me. So let me ask you this question at Biola. Do you see female faculty being treated differently than male faculty? Okay, Nicole, you're shaking your head yes, vigorously. What have been your observations? Things have happened in my classes, but I think I'm able to put a nip it in the bud if I want to. The question would be if some female faculty feel like they can nip it in the bud if things start to go in directions that they don't want it to go. Next. Said so gently and respectfully. Okay, yeah. Negative treatment. No, it was. I meant that. Seriously. Oh, did you have a question? Oh, I thought you wanted me to go back.
No. What was the age group that they did this with?
I don't know. Oh, college students. It was college students. Yep. One of the weaknesses of communication studies is that we tend to only do, well, because you can think about it, who do faculty most have access to? College students. So there's actually been journal articles written about how our population tends to be really, so when we talk about romantic love, we talk about conflict, but we are talking about a very identifiable population, which is college students. So sometimes communication studies are a little bit weak. We need to kind of get out of that a little bit. So yeah, this was definitely college students. Okay, be superwoman. It's the tension of wanting a full family life, right? The mom who can do everything, crafts, volunteer for the PTA, show up at games, okay, and do it all. And be successful in life outside the family. Julia Wood used to say to me all the time, I so appreciated her saying it, she said, Tim, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. I thought that was really good, very wise. Seasons of life, I think is very important. How do you stay on the fast track in business and take time off to have one or more children? When we get to gendered organizations, Julia is going to make some very interesting observations, ladies, why you do not get promoted at the same rate that men do. Okay? Because if you have a child, what's going to show up on your resume during that time period of your pregnancy? What's going to show up on your resume? Big old goose egg. Nothing. Right? They're going to look at it and say, okay, where was your productivity for this year? And you're going to say, well, I was pregnant. And it's like, well, okay. But When I'm comparing your resume to a man's resume, he doesn't have a gap. Now, I don't care why the gap is there. I'm just looking at the gap. Okay, makes sense? We'll have that discussion when we talk about glass ceilings, how a glass ceiling is sometimes instituted. Then, this is another term you need to know, very famous for feminist theorists as well as gender theorists, and that is called the second shift. Ladies, you probably will have 2 jobs in your lifetime. You'll have your job, and then you come home for your second job. Okay? You run a business during the day, and then you come home and run the home. So ladies, you work a full day, you come home, well, guess what? Dinner's got to be made. Homework's got to be done. House has got to be cleaned, which means shopping had to happen in order for dinner to happen. So, ladies, generally speaking, when you finish your first shift, you come home to the second shift. Okay? Interesting to think about. But the expectation is that you can do that. You can do both and be wildly successful at both. Okay? So, but you're expected to be a superwoman of some kind. So yeah, second shift. That just begs to be a test question right there. That's just screaming out. So, Julia would say, here's the paradox about women today, is that there is no single definition of feminine anymore. What does it mean to be feminine? Well, today, ladies, you have proven virtually that you can do anything you want to. From MMA fighting, to being a stay-home mom, to being Secretary of the State, to the president of a university. You can do whatever you want. And with all of that comes this idea of, yeah, but what does it mean to be feminine? Well, it's not that easy anymore. If you were asked my grandmother that question in the 1950s, you would have had a very isolated answer. But today, it's like, well, I don't know. What do we mean by feminine? You can almost go in any direction you want to, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, with that comes some confusion about, well, what ought I be? Okay? And again, I harp back to this over and over and over and over. When you get married, you had better have these conversations with the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. What does it mean to be masculine according to your dictionary? What does it mean to be feminine according to your dictionary? Okay? Very important questions to have. All right, makes sense? Let's talk about a Christian critique. Body image. Ladies, I really do feel for you. It's gotten to the point that this is ludicrous. When you go shopping at Albertsons and you're on the way to checkout and you see all these covers of all these magazines, it's insane. Right? The message is your body is the most important thing about you. The most important thing. How you look. Which goes back to what Julia said, appearance still counts. So let's get a little bit of a biblical perspective. Remember what we talked about body image. It's not consistent. It's a fluid target you're trying to hit. Because remember we went back to the painting of Rembrandt. Remember we talked about what body images were like in World War II as compared to now, which now is incredibly thin. So what does God say in the scriptures? Well, in Psalm 139, God says this through King David. Thou didst weave me in my mother's womb. Think about that. Obviously talking about a basket maker or a weaver, and using that kind of language that God was intimately involved in your creation in the mother's womb. Okay? I will give thanks to thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are thy works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame, talking here about your physical frame, was not hidden from thee when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. And in Hebrew wisdom literature, the earth is often metaphorical for a woman's womb. Okay, so God is active. Your body type did not surprise him. He was active in creating your body type. So when you look at these incredibly thin European cultural standards and you think, well, nuts, I'm never going to look like that, that's okay. God made you the way he wanted you to look. Now, does that not... We all need to exercise, we all need to stay in shape, blah, 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 blah. But some of you will look at those images and say, there's nothing I can physically do to look like the person on the cover of Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. And God says, that's fine, I didn't make you that way. By the way, I didn't even make her that way. Okay? There's a lot of extracurricular activity going on, okay? And airbrushing and all that kind of stuff. All right, but does that make sense? We kind of need to own that a little bit. Men, of course, but ladies particularly, God made you with your physical frame like an expert basket weaver is what he did in constructing you. And I think you need to embrace that a little bit. Okay? Body image is not the most important thing about you. Oh, was that it? Oh my goodness. I think I meant to add one more. Okay, let me add one more. I'm sorry. I meant to add this. I didn't add the slide. So ladies, what is to be your prime directive? One of the worst things I do is speak at singles retreats. Worst thing in the world. Here's what happens at single retreats, okay? And this is why I honestly don't do them. You get bombarded by the women, okay? And these women come up to you, and they're educated, sharp, and they're not getting asked out. They're not. And they're kind of looking and saying, I look at my church, I look at my young adult class, and there's just not a lot of potential. And to be honest, I've had more than one woman say this to me, I think I scare men off. And I said, now why would you say that? She said, well, I'm ambitious, I like to blah, 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 blah. And I said, so what's the alternative for that? You be less ambitious? You not educate yourself? And you're doing this why? To meet some guy? I said, here's what you need to do. You need to be the person God wants you to be. He's given you gifts. You need to pursue those gifts. And listen, I don't doubt for a second that if you go on and do graduate work, I don't doubt that if you're ambitious and go off and do volunteering for the International Justice Mission, that there will be some guys who will be intimidated by that. I don't doubt that for a second. But I simply say you cannot dumb down the gifts and abilities God's given you. You just can't do that. Seek first the kingdom of God, and he will add all things unto you. So you fulfill your mission, and you want to eventually marry, if you do, but just keep in the back of your mind, if you marry a guy who's intimidated by your strengths, what will that look like for the rest of your life? I think it'll be miserable. And marriage is only great if you marry the right person. It can be a bloody disaster if you don't. So ladies, go to the max of your potential, and if God is so inclined in some ways, you're going to meet a guy who finds that attractive and is not intimidated by it. Okay? I mean, Noreen's unbelievable. She was a leader in Campus Crusade for Christ, very assertive, wasn't looking to jump into a relationship, turned me down the first handful of times I asked her out. And again, imagine Noreen if she was married to somebody who was intimidated by her. What a frustrating life that would be. Okay, does that make sense? And it's hard for women because in our culture, you have to kind of sit back and allow the guy to initiate. I think that can be really frustrating. I think for guys, at least we always have the illusion that we can initiate, and single out a girl and pursue her. But women often feel like I have to sit back and allow a guy to approach me, and that can be really frustrating. Because after we did DTR week here, we got a bunch of emails to people that were on that panel, the Tonuses, the Graces, and women just saying it's very frustrating because I've never been asked out since I've been here at Biola. Never. And what do I do with that? And that's a hard question. I simply responded a couple ways and said, God wants your attention, and sometimes we're so busy he can't get it. So I don't doubt that he'll use dating sometimes to get your attention. I don't doubt that God has put a roadblock up in some of your lives to say, you know, I kind of have your attention right now via your desire to date, and it's not happening, and I'm not so quick to get rid of that intimacy that we have right now. And again, I think God can work in the heart of men and say, hey, I want you to pursue this woman. And he can, I don't think he co-opts their free will, but I think absolutely he can lay it on the heart of a man to say, I want you to pursue this woman.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.